So we've got another question. This one's on a sort of a challenging topic. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. So here's the question. My marriage has lost its romance and intimacy. We're both in our 50s with young adult, teen kids, all still at home. My husband and I have become more like roommates or teammates, and I don't know how to get back to what we used to have. I feel like we're totally different people, and I don't know what to do about it.
Oh, yeah, that's so heartbreaking. And it's so common, isn't it? Like, I hear it all the time. So just number one, to that person, you're not alone. I think that's actually incredibly common experience. And just to say that, I don't know, is it 18, 20 years are so intense of raising kids and pouring all your energy into keeping a home going and getting them all where they need to go and making sure that they are okay. And it's really hard to pour energy into other places, including sometimes into yourself and into your relationship. So you're not alone. And I just really want you to hear that. The other part of this question that I thought was interesting was I don't know how to get back to what we had. So I have a couple of thoughts that I'll just kind of riff on here and jump in. So one is really naming what you feel you had. Like, what did you have? What was great about it? And it might be specific things you did together or how you related, but like, let's see if we can name what it was that made that relationship so special. And also, while you're doing that, think about who you were in that relationship. What qualities did you have? Were you really engaged? Were you interested? Were you curious? Were you excited? Like, and where are those qualities in you now? Sometimes I think it's easier to look at yourself, not to say you're the only one to do the work. And I know people feel that way sometimes, but like to just look into yourself and say, who was I when I really was enjoying this relationship? And are there ways for me to pull those qualities back, even in the midst of all this chaos that's happening in our family right now? Yeah, I don't know. Like, how does that hit you when I say that as somebody who's lived through this?
Yes, it's so interesting because I sort of feel like, as always, like our brains work in parallel, right? So you just sort of like cast your gaze backwards and sort of picking up the threads of who was this person, what was the relationship like, and I'm simultaneously like looking to the future, like who are we? Who do we want to be together? Like really matters to us because I think we need that big picture view of like sort of looking out in all directions, right? And the other thing that really struck me about this question is just like the energy drain of those years, like you were saying, right? Like how hard it is to be all things to like raising humans. Like you're basically growing humans. And I had a family counselor tell our family years ago that the teen years in particular can be really hard on a marriage because, you know, teenagers sometimes can play hardball. Like, you know, they can divide and conquer in order to seize power in the family. I'm not trying to make it sound like every teenager is like a Machiavellian, you know, scoundrel or anything, but you know, like there are power plays happening, and sometimes you know, the divide and conquer strategy can cause a lot of conflict between the parents, and there's nothing worse than feeling like you're not on the same page when something that matters so much to you, like how you're raising your child. So the counselor assured us that if you can get through the teen years, get to the other side, you know, sort of like stay connected in the meantime, but just know like this is a temporary situation. It does get easier after that. And that has certainly been our experience times 4, because at one point we had like 4 preteens and teens. It was intense.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to hear from you, because I feel like you are such a shining example of someone who's lived through that. And really, I mean, I look at you and you just look like you're having so much fun with your husband. So it's really lovely to see. I felt that way when our kids were toddlers, like, okay, if we can get through this, we'll probably be okay. But I hear what you're saying, because now we've got teens, and there is almost that like what was theoretical kind of feeling in parenting, you're now seeing how it's how it's played out, and you're like, okay, so where do we go from here? So it is, the parenting piece has a lot to do with it, but I just think we can neglect ourselves a lot and our relationships a lot. The other thing I just wanted to mention, because I thought it's kind of, I don't don't know if I want to say this, but I, I read a book years ago called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. The one thing that really stuck with me from the book is that he spent a year journaling every day about what he appreciated about his wife.
Wow.
Never told her, and handed her the journal at Thanksgiving the next year.
Wow.
And the thing that has stuck with me is how much their relationship changed in that year, even though she didn't know what he was doing, because he was looking at her through the eyes of appreciation.
Wow.
So I just feel like so much of the time, just how one person's thinking changes how they're acting, changes how the other one responds. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily everybody working towards the same goal. It can just be that little moment of like, I really appreciated when she made me coffee. And so you're just thinking good thoughts of her.
Yes.
So anyway, I just wanted to share that because I thought that was really beautiful.
I love that. And I have to share a really sappy story. So like sugar warning for anybody who can't handle a lot of sappiness, but okay, like Neil and I have been together since high school, right? We were high school sweethearts. And one Valentine's Day, I decided to go to his math class and to write a giant heart that took up an entire blackboard and colored it in pink and wrote to Neil from Anne or Love Anne on the blackboard. And you would think like this would be a lot of teenage boys' worst nightmare, like this spontaneous expression of love. But he said he felt so loved, right?
Aww.
So recently he bought himself a whiteboard for his new office. And I keep thinking like, I have to go in there and I just have to write hearts all over it one day. So that's going to be
so
maybe that would be my
cute.
Valentine's project for this.
Yes,
Just,
that's so cute.
Flashback to like, prime sap season, but you know what? I still love him. And I mean, he's just like been such a rock in our family and for me in times of deep struggle and everything. And so he deserves to be celebrated with at least as many hearts as we have had years together. So that's my 2 cents.
Really sweet. That's really sweet. I think, obviously you're lucky you found your person, and not everybody gets to have that for so many years. And I do want to acknowledge that sometimes we have to say goodbye, but I think that there's a way of approaching it with curiosity and not like just terror.
Yeah.
Just again, it's kind of, similar always my answers, like compassion for yourself, compassion for the other person, curiosity as much as possible, and just to be with whatever's coming up and know that you are in a phase of some kind, and whatever it is now, it will be different, but the more you can think about it and tend to it, even if it's in small amounts, it's probably going to make a difference. But like, what a sweet question. And I know that person is probably really scared. So I just really want to acknowledge their bravery for writing it. And I don't know if we've been helpful, but I hope we have.
I think I thought of one other thing that might be helpful to them. And this is some wisdom that was passed on to me by one of the women I interviewed for my book. And she said that she realized that she and her ex-husband had reached like crossroads where they could have struggled on for a few more decades. And as she put it, been that couple who should never have stayed together.
Right.
But she wanted to leave the relationship at a point with love and dignity where she still really cared about this person. And she said that like, even now, like they're still the best of friends. They're just no longer partners. So I think it's about being honest about the emotions, no matter what direction they're going, like, things are going to get better, things are going to get worse, or we just need to get through like the thick of things right now. Being real about that, not running from the emotion or the reality, because that's where I think things get really complicated. If you're like signaling that everything's fine and it's really not fine, right?
Yes. And so even just avoiding thinking about it yourself, like, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to think your way into an outcome necessarily. Like you can do some what ifing in this and just see how it feels. And and you don't have to make any decisions today.